Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Mr. Kingdom Fit here. If you didn't get the opportunity, I highly recommend you go check out the last podcast that was downloaded. You can catch it on Kingdom Fit page on Facebook, and you can also check it out on Apple Podcasts at Kingdom Fits. That's apostrophe S, Kingdom Fits. There's also some other things on there that you can check out. You can listen to. I'm going to try to do these things live so we can do some question and answering, or so we can engage in some dialogue, because I want to know what you guys think. I highly recommend you guys to leave some comments, leave some reviews for your boy, man. Leave some reviews for me. It really, really helps, goes a long way. Why? Because it allows me to be a little bit more engaging as far as the material, the things I'm talking about, what directions to take, what things I can talk about, and what things we can get into a conversation about, so we can make this a little bit more interactive and a little bit more driven towards what it is you would like to hear as things goes on. Again, the name of this, or the name of the Apple podcast, is Kingdom Fits. Again, that's mind, body, spirit. Kingdom Fits. What my focus is, my vision about all of this is to impact the world, even if it's the least among us. I believe that everyone has a purpose in life. Everyone has a direction. Everyone is a leader, and everyone has an opportunity to create change. I think what is prohibiting a lot of people, even from the greatest to the youngest, from the oldest to the wise, those who choose to think that they're not wise, I think the thing that is prohibiting people from not making change or to speaking out about change is we're just too discouraged in the mind to believe that people won't hear you. And sometimes you have to get to a place where you stop caring if people are listening or not, and you just put it out there. Look, Jesus said it best: if my disciples don't preach the gospel, the rocks will cry out. So what he's saying is eventually the job is going to get done. Whether you like it or not, it's going to happen. Okay, so check out the last podcast. We went and we talked about man, father, husband, the perspective and the societal standpoint on how society is viewing those attributes or those roles as it relates to being in the house, the job, and just the functionality of just life, period. So I kind of want to caveat off of that. And I want to talk to you guys today about the perspective of being the foundation. And I know I'm using the word perspective a little loosely, because when I talk about perspective, what I'm saying is what people see and what is it supposed to be, or what concept has been developed through the ideal of what the foundation is. I've said in circles of life, I've talked to many people, I've been in churches, I have engaged with people in spiritual leadership. Some people say women are foundations. They hold the family together because they are the nurturers. They hold the family together. So when I'm coming from the word perspective, I'm speaking on it from the peripheral vision of what people see. But what I want to talk to you today about is the foundation and why the foundation is important. And this is not so much of a debate about who is the foundation and why and this, that, and back and forward. I just want to talk about the importance of a foundation. When we look at the Bible, and of course I reference the Bible, this is what Kingdom Fit is: a king in this kingdom ruling a domain. We're dealing with God. We're dealing with Jesus as he was a king and he had his own kingdom. So when we're dealing with these topics, I come from that theological standpoint. So when you look at the foundation of the Bible, the foundation of it was established on a man named Adam. But pre-existence of Adam is founded on the foundation of a man named Jesus, or some might say God or Christ. Okay, we're not trying to get into a religious standpoint on this, that, and the other. But the foundation of something is so important that if you mess with it too much, or if you filter with it too much, you can break or you can strain something out of its place, that it becomes unnatural in its ability to stand strong. It wavers like a boat when it's sitting on the water. It's unstable. It wavers, even though it's strong enough to sit, or it's strong enough to withstand it, but it wavers under the influence of what it's supposed to be. And when it comes to a foundational standpoint, God started with a man named Adam. The foundation was so important in the Bible that the enemy tried to taint the bloodline of the foundation by having angels sleep with women. And we're not going to get into this thought process here. I just want to stay on topic. But it goes to show that these things can occur to cause the male child to be put in a position, or a man to be put into a position to question its identity. The Bible puts it like this: you shall bruise his head and he shall bruise your heel. So he is to be on top and you are to be on bottom, as relates to the Son of Man, Son of God, and the enemy being the devil, and so on and so forth. The foundation was so important from Genesis to Revelation that the bloodline had to remain pure. That's how important the foundation was. It had to go through 42 generations, but it had to remain pure through 42 generations. And the reason for it remaining pure through 42 generations, so there would be a representation of what a foundation looks like. Christ, being Jesus, the representation of the 42 generations, he represented something that was so necessary to the understanding of what a foundation was, that he demonstrated it through the compartments of his life. He could demonstrate it through the compartment of the business he kept. He's demonstrated through the compartment of the relationships he kept. He demonstrated through the compartments of his own mother and his father. He demonstrated through the compartment of dealing with the council and the Sanhedrins. He dealt with it in the compartment of being able to be a ear, or to be a word of encouragement, or to be a word of wisdom. He dealt with it in so many different compartments that he did not allow whom he was to be shifted or to be shaken. Now, some might say, when it came to him being hung on the cross on the road of Gethsemane, that you would say that was a shaking point in his life. And of course, I think any man coming to the point of death will have a shaking point of his life. But now let's pull that into a different perspective of just talking about the foundation of a man, period. When you taint too much with the foundation, what you start to get is a different illumination of what a foundation really is. When you play with the foundation too much, it becomes like pottered clay. You make it into what you want to make it into, and you give it a description of what you want to give it. And whatever you describe or you give life to, that it will become. So although God started with a man as being the foundation of something, it's easy for man to change what the foundation of something really is. Because when you're tainting something, or you're playing with the mind, or you're finding yourself constantly wavering between the difficulties of life, and can you withstand the difficulties of life, and can you uphold yourself in all these different compartments of life, you start to represent a foundation that's not strong enough, or a foundation that cannot stand. And the most difficult thing that you can see, or the most difficult thing that can take place in a family, is a weak foundation. And this is why we deal with so many things in marriage. Now, we We know we could pull up statistics and we could talk about these statistical standpoints about marriage, and when it relates to the military, how high divorce rates are. When it comes to church, how high divorce rates are, and adultery and fornication and so on and so forth. These things become a representation of someone not speaking out against what's not allowed and acceptable. And when you continue to punch or to crack a foundation, things begin to slip through the seams of what's supposed to be strong. All of a sudden, you find yourself questioning the identity of what it is you're supposed to be, because there ain't no true, or there is no true representation of what a foundation is. I'll take myself for example. I've met a lot of people in my life that from the highs to the lows, to the left, to the right. And I've met people who didn't have fathers. I met people whose fathers are millionaires. I met people whose fathers are congressmen and mayors and so on and so forth. I've met different people from all walks of life. And what I've understood through all of that is their best example of what a foundation was did not exist in their own household. Sometimes they had to use their own experiences of life to keep themselves in steady ground. Sometimes they had to identify with the reality of their mistakes to not continue to walk the same path. They say in life that if you continue to do the wrong thing over and over and over and again, that wrong to you become right. But that don't mean that right is right, because all you did was develop a concept with a wrong mentality. But these people would give their stories about how they grew up and where their concepts come from and what their foundations of their arguments and bases are standing on. And it's all standing from their own experience of life, not really having someone to emulate or someone to go to and to talk to, or to find different avenues of approach of how to handle situations. So as a man, I will find myself questioning the things that I would do. And I'm pretty sure many of you have. I would find myself questioning some of the things that I would do. And some of those things I would say to myself, where did this concept come from? Where did this ideal originate from? Why do I believe that what it is that I'm saying to my children, to my wife, my ideologies of how I feel about the things that I'm doing, or my everyday existence of how I go about, where am I developing this from? Now, I understand I'm wise enough to sit here and say, well, these are the things that have matriculated as I've gotten older. But is those things so strong within me that if something comes more stronger or convincing, that what I stand on is strong enough to withstand what's coming? And sometimes we deal with the hardship of life that might be financially, that might be a broken heart, that might be a divorce, that might be a turning off of a switch, that might be a realignment of a mindset, that might be an approach of how to do something different. And sometimes we don't want to shake our foundation to strengthen it. Instead, we shake our foundation and it cracks itself through the areas of defense. And when you're defending yourself from a foundational standpoint, something that's strong and structured, what you're actually doing is you're cracking the foundation under the umbrella that you think you're becoming stronger. Are you putting yourself in position to be an alpha beta male? Are you putting yourself in position to be a person who wants to be flamboyant in your style of dress or your code and your ethics of life? And your foundation is structured on things that are not really holding it together, but that are creating seams, but it's defending itself from the foundation. So what am I getting at? What am I trying to tell you? Your foundation is not structured on your ability to defend the foundation. It's not structured on the ability to defend the foundation. Your foundation should be structured on concepts that are built on practical principles of applications. And here's what I mean by that. And I hope that I say something to someone and it helps somebody. Watch these principles being put into practice. Jesus said to the 12, what do they have to eat? He said, go and find them something to eat for the 5,000 and the children. He said, what do they have to eat? Find them something to eat. He said, we have nothing here but a lunch, a kid's lunch, 2 fish and 5 loaves. Watch these principles and applications being put into practice. And I'm going to tell you why these are considered foundational practice. He said, he takes it, he lifts it, he prays to heaven. He takes it and he gives it to the disciples. What the disciples choose to do with it is totally up to them. They could have eaten it. They could have divided it amongst themselves. They could have done different things in different ways. But what they did was they put it out in front of the people, gave it to the people, and it began to multiply as they went on through every person. But the principle in this is of reference towards a person or something that it has the capacity to supersede your capacity. That's a practice principle. Why is that a practice principle? I don't meet a millionaire and not learn a principle from that person and still stay stuck in my foundation to say I can do that when I know I can't. I don't meet a billionaire and still stay in my foundation and defend myself from, well, you just want to be. I'm defending myself from a cracked foundation instead of understanding that a principle of applications have to be applied, and that principle is a reverence or it is a recognition towards something greater. Jesus recognized that the Father, and like I said, we're not going to get to the religious aspect of it, the Father was someone of a greater capacity. And that capacity gave him the confidence that his foundation of what he stood on, or his reasoning for doing the thing that he went about doing it the way that he did, was sure to work. It was sure to work. Are the things you're doing sure to work? Are the ways that you're going about having your conversations with your wife, are they working? Are the ways that you're going about having a conversation with your children, and they're now teenagers and they're trying to work through life as kids, you didn't really do it too well, and now they're teenagers. Are they working? Are the things that you're doing on your occupation or your skill trait, are they working? Are the things that you keep putting in front of you and putting down and you keep saying, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do, are they working? Are the thoughts that you're putting towards the things that are in your hand, that are in your face, that you're trying to walk into with the concept in the minds and the practical application that you're applying, are they working? Do you have the capacity to do it? Because if you don't have the capacity to do it, I'm going to tell you something that somebody probably won't tell you, but I'm going to tell you something that has to be said. Somebody else can. There's a saying that says, work hard to outwork yourself. Because if you don't work hard, somebody's always going to outwork you. So you should always be trying to outwork yourself. Why? Because that will always put you at a place of evolving. Because you can never outwork yourself. Because you can always do more. So there's a concept behind that. You can always do more, right? So are you looking at things, and this principle that I applied here, with the capacity to say, I can't do it all. I'm going to need some help here. Now, I'm not talking about a spiritual leader or a spiritual father and a we all try to run to the gates of a pastor, or we try, and I'm not knocking these things. I want to give reverence where reverence is due and respect to people that are given the knowledge of respect. But what I am saying is, I've learned something from my wife, and this is my second marriage. I've learned something from my wife that I have never learned while being in a relationship with a woman. And that was the wisdom of patience. Sometimes for men, it's very difficult for us to practice it. And it's not difficult for us to practice it because we don't have it. It's because we want things to line up according to our tunnel of thinking. Our tunnel of thinking, in our mind, it flows. And when it flows, we tend to slow everything down. And when we slow everything down, we become impatient with things that are not aligning to how we are programming things to be. And so I've learned that from my wife. And again, I said this is my second marriage. I've learned that from my wife. And that ability to learn patience sometimes grant you the ability to slow down your thought process about how you are handling life. We want our hands in everything. We want to do everything. We want to touch everything. Do you not realize that you are the foundation of your family? When God started with Adam, he was the foundation to start from. When you're building a house, you lay down the foundation and you build up. So when God created Adam, he started with the foundation first and pulled the woman out. So what he said to Adam was, you are not supposed to crack. There is no filtering of anything different than what's applied already. Meaning, there are concepts, there's principles I have placed within you that you should never waver from. You should never put yourself in position to think that homosexuality is okay. You should never put yourself in position to think bestiality is okay. You should never put yourself in position to think to murder, to kill, to steal, or destroy. You should never put yourself in position to go against the Constitution or the laws of the kingdom. They're in you, Adam. I've placed the foundation of the kingdom in you. And you are wavering, or you're being stretched to your capacity because you're cracking. You're cracking under your own capacity. And what you're realizing is you can only handle so much. I love that in Genesis that it said Adam met with God in the cool of the day. Sometimes it's something you read and you just kind of blow past it and you say, man, that's great. God meet with Adam in the garden in the cool of the day. This must have been a conversation that God was checking in on him, or whatever the case might be. Whatever. Who knew what was going on, right? It's such a simple principle, right? Not a concept, but a principle. Something that's practiced, put into practice, that reaps a benefit. And that principle is something that's missing today. Men don't check on each other no more. Men don't converse with each other anymore. Men have put themselves in a status of just being too busy. The hardest thing to run is a country. The hardest thing to run is a country, right? Forgive me for a minute. The hardest thing to run is a country. But God placed in the man the ability to run a kingdom. To run a kingdom. We're trying to run a country under the laws of principles that don't work. We're trying to run a household under principles that don't work. We're trying to teach our loved ones things about life and principles that don't work. We're trying to go into business with principles that don't work. We're trying to be somebody with principles that don't work. You're stretching yourself too much. And you're defending yourself from a cracked foundation. You can't stop the boat from sinking if there's a crack in it. It's going to sink. That's law. It's supposed to sink. There's a hole in it. There's a crack in it. When God dealt with Adam, he made sure Adam understood that cracks exist and holes will appear. But I am here for you because I have the capacity to deal with what you have troubles or issues or concerns about. When you crack a phone, when you break a device, you always return it back to the owner. Because somebody has a better ability to fix what's been damaged. So, I leave you with a word, with a thought-provoking idea, or with something to think about. And I just want you to be encouraged as a man. And I'm just picking up from the last podcast. I will get into different things. And I just want you to be encouraged as a man. And I want to tell you that your foundation is supposed to be rocky. It's supposed to be shaky. But somebody, God, has the ability to strengthen it when it cracks. And do you have the ability to be honest with yourself and say, I need my foundation to be strengthened? Because I can't strengthen it no more. I have nobody around me to strengthen this foundation. It's cracking. And I need help. All right, so I appreciate you guys, man. Like I said, check out the podcast, Apple Podcasts, Kingdom Fits. Also, this will be going live on the Facebook page, Kingdom Fit. Leave a comment, leave a review, thumbs up, thumbs down. Tell me what you think, man. As I say, I will continue to keep bringing this. Like I said, I was going to get my wife on these topics as we keep trying to do this and as I keep developing on how to go about doing these. I just want to be an asset to you. We're changing the world, influencing from greatest to small, impacting and making change. This is Mr. Kingdom Fit. I'm out. I see you guys again. Like I said, I've been trying to upload this every Friday so you can catch me live. Don't forget, check out kingdomfit.online for merch, for purchase of merchandise. I love you guys. And as always, mind, body, spirit. I'm out.